We're glad that you're here. I want to share with you a quote from one of the developers of our series for this Lent, again and again. It's Reverend T. Denise Anderson. As she was writing and reflecting on our theme for yesterday and this week on listening, again and again, we need to listen. She says this: the Lenten journey calls us to examine the things in which our hearts are invested. How important is comfort to us? Would we be willing to listen to hard truths and be changed by them, even if it proved to be difficult? Are we committed to the status quo because, though it may be imperfect, it's at least familiar? Again and again, we are implored to listen, especially when what we hear is unsettling. We started last Wednesday journeying through the book of Proverbs, and we're going to continue to do that. It'll take us a while to get through the entire book. But what I noticed today as I was looking at what it means to listen and what Scripture says about listening, the most common place that I found the word listen in Scripture is the book of Proverbs. How coincidental is that, right as we get started on this journey? So I want to share a few of those with you in Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Proverbs 18:13. If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Proverbs 18:2. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. There's a good one that we should all take to heart. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. I noticed that it's his there too. I guess you ladies are exempt from that one, huh? You know I'm being sarcastic. Proverbs 19:27. Cease to hear instruction, my son, and you will stray from the word of knowledge. Proverbs 2:2. Making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Proverbs 11:14, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Proverbs 17:28, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips and listens, he is deemed intelligent. There's just a few for you that speak to the importance of listening and discerning in our lives. So today, as I thought about listening and what it means to listen and how we listen, or maybe how we struggle to listen, I thought I would just go to some very practical thoughts, very practical steps on what can help us to listen better, to listen more deeply, to listen more effectively. So I have 5 things that I want to share with you today in the next couple minutes. There's this concept out there in the world called active listening. And active listening is all about taking intentional steps to both show that you're listening, to embody listening, and to actually listen for understanding. I want to share with you 5 steps towards active listening that I think are very important as I put a lot of things together. First, may seem simple, but pay attention. Pay attention may seem like the most basic thing we could cover, but paying attention is often just goes undone. We think that we're listening, but the truth is we're not really paying attention. Give the speaker your undivided attention. Acknowledge what they're saying, the message. Recognize that both what we say is important, but also what we do in our body language is important. All those nonverbal things that we are doing communicates as well. So what can help us to pay attention is to focus on things like looking at the speaker, look at the person talking directly, look them in the eyes. Put aside all the distracting thoughts that are floating through your mind. I think that's one of the toughest things to really engage in well about listening is when we're listening to someone, we'll have all these other thoughts flowing in our minds as well. And you get to that place where you've got something to say, but the truth is you need to set aside those thoughts in order to truly listen to what the person before you is saying. Avoid being distracted by the environments. I'm sitting in a car place today, and so there's music around me. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm working my best to tune all of that out so that I can be right here with you. So we do have to avoid all those outside factors that are trying to pull our mind and our thoughts towards it. Um, Pay attention, as I said, to the body language, and then be careful about side conversations. This is something that we don't think about as often, especially when we're in groups of people. If someone's presenting to us, or maybe it's even Sunday morning and there's a sermon going on, and your neighbor leans over to you to say something, that side conversation absolutely keeps you from hearing what the speaker is saying. So be careful about those side conversations that we have when we're in a meeting. Whether you're at work or you're at church or wherever you might be. All right, second, number two, after pay attention, show that you are listening. Again, that may go sort of over our heads and be like, what do you mean show? Well, show the person that you are actually listening to them. Use your body language to communicate that you're hearing them. Nod. You'd be surprised how much it communicates to someone that you're really listening to them by simply nodding every once in a while and saying, yeah, okay, I understand. Those things are incredibly valuable in a relationship to show that you care, that you're listening. Smile, use facial expressions. Those are great things to do as well. And note your posture. I always say that something about this, usually when I go into a workshop or a conference and I'm leading a session, that you can always know where someone is in that workshop about what you're saying by looking at their posture. If their arms are folded and they're sitting back in their chair with their legs crossed, it's a very closed position and communicates to everyone around them that they probably don't really want to be there. They're not really listening well, and that they're not very open and inviting whatever the speaker is saying to come into their mind, body, and soul. So pay attention to your posture. Keep an open posture. Be receptive to what you're hearing and show that through your body. And then lastly, on number two, show that you're listening. Encourage the speaker to continue. You can say things like, tell me more, help me understand that better. Just saying, that is even, you'd be surprised how much that communicates that you want to know more. All simple things, but can help us to listen better. Thirdly, number three, provide feedback. We said it a little bit when we talked about nod your head and say, yes, I hear you, tell me more. But we can go even further with this. Sometimes our own thoughts, our personal filters, if you will, our assumptions and judgments and beliefs can actually distort what we are hearing. They can impinge communication as it leaves one person's head and heart through their mouth, and it comes through the airwaves into our ears and into our mind as we create understanding of it. There's so many things that can get in the way of really understanding. So as a listener, it's part of my role, part of my responsibility to check in to see if I'm actually understanding what is being said. And so you might find that you need to say things like, hang on a second, what I'm hearing you say is this. Have I got that right, or am I missing something? Or it sounds like you're saying this, is that right? Those are great ways to check in, provide some feedback to ensure that you're actually hearing what the person is trying to communicate. You can even ask questions. What do you mean when you say X, Y, or Z? Is this what you mean? And then just a good idea to maybe periodically, as you're listening to someone, to summarize what you're hearing. If you go on and you're listening to someone for, let's say, 15 minutes on end, you've probably missed something. So it can be a great thing to say, hey, I'm listening really intently. You might even say, hey, can you pause for a second? I'm really listening. I'm trying to understand. And here's what I'm hearing. Have I got you right so far? If they confirm, okay, great, keep going. You'd be surprised how much that can communicate to someone that you actually care and want to know what is going on in their life. All right, 1, 2, and 3. Here's number 4. This is an important one. Defer judgment. Interrupting people is a waste of time. It frustrates the speaker. It prevents understanding. It limits our understanding of the message. So allow people to finish. Now, if you're doing one of those check-ins, I would say to you that's the best time, the only way that we should really interrupt someone when they're speaking, to do those check-ins. But that's not so much as an interruption as it's asking someone, hey, pause. I want to hear you, and I'm not sure I'm getting you. Can we check in on this thing? That's not an interruption with your thought or your idea. It's an interruption to pay attention to make sure that you're understanding. What's important to not interrupt with is counter arguments. Let the person finish, let them get it out. And then if you need to, after you've done your check-in, if you need to say, hey, well, here's something that I think, and that might speak into what you're saying. That might be where your counter argument maybe comes in, but let the person finish. All right. Number 1 was pay attention. Number 2, show that you're listening. Number 3, provide feedback. 4, defer judgment. Here's the 5th and last one for today. Respond appropriately. Now that may seem, again, self-evident and like a given, but active listening is a model for respect and understanding. You get information and perspective when you listen well. You add nothing to a conversation by attacking a speaker or putting that person down. So when you respond, it's important to be open and honest and candid in what you say and what you respond with. If you have an opinion to share that might be counter, do so respectfully. Be careful of what you might be communicating through your tone of voice, through your body language, through all those other forms of nonverbal communication. And then always, I think, ask the question that we get in Scripture that we call the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? What would you want that person to say if they had a disagreement with you? Like, how would you best receive a counter argument? And then maybe you can go about it in that way. So 5 things to help us communicate better that I offer to you today. Active listening, pay attention, show that you are listening, provide feedback to the speaker, do those check-ins, right? Defer judgment, and respond appropriately, respectfully, giving that person dignity. Those are some thoughts for today. We're going to reflect some more this week on what it means to listen well. That's kind of our theme that we began yesterday. If you missed Sunday's message, you can go to our website, www.hoodmemorial.org, and click on the Watch Worship Live link, or actually it will be better just to click on the sermons page. You can listen there. You can also listen on YouTube. You can listen on Facebook. And we went live last night with our first evening Lenten online service. So if you missed that and didn't get a chance to be a part of that, 8 or 9 minutes of your day to take and reflect. It's a very prayerful, contemplative, wonderful time to help center yourself as that service reflected on peace in the midst of the storm through a great story that we hear in the Gospel of Mark. So I invite you to do that. Again, you can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, or our website. All right, we're going to hand over to Pastor Joni, and she's going to lead us in a time of prayer. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please join us on our free conference call. That number is 563-999-1222. You can join us for that time of prayer. Goodbye and God bless. Hope your week is off to a wonderful start.